Hi, I'm Sue Jackson of the Book by Book blog, and I'm here with another wrap-up video from 2023, my top 6 nonfiction books of the year. This isn't a top 10 list because I only read 12 nonfiction books last year, so I decided half was about a good breaking point. So these are my top 6 nonfiction books read in 2023. I'll start with my number one book, as I explained in my 2023 wrap-up video, and then the rest are in alphabetical order. So, The Zookeeper's Wife by Diane Ackerman was my number one nonfiction pick of the year. Absolutely loved this book. It's history, but so much more. It's about a husband and wife zookeeper team in Warsaw, and what happens to them and the zoo after the Nazis invade Warsaw. This amazing couple did so much, not only to save animals, but to save people. They saved hundreds of Jews during the war by keeping them secretly in their own home and in the zoo, on the zoo premises. And the Nazis were there every day. The Nazis were using the zoo for various purposes during the war. They took the animals pretty early on in the war, but they were using the zoo premises. There were Nazis there every day, and yet somehow these amazing people managed to save hundreds of Jews right under their noses. So this is not only history, although the history is there and it's fascinating. You know, I've read an awful lot about World War II, but not much about Poland during World War II. And so I found that really interesting. I learned a lot. This was a book that while I was reading it, I kept grabbing my iPad to look things up. My husband just looked over at me and rolled his eyes and said, "You go down another rabbit hole?" But that's the kind of book it is. It's just, there are so many fascinating aspects in here that make you want to learn more. I love that kind of nonfiction. But this is also, it's not just a book about history. It's about the animals. It's about humanity. Just a fabulous book. And the author created it in large part from primary sources. The Zookeeper's Wife, of the title, kept a lot of journals and letters and things like that. So that makes it all the more fascinating. So number one nonfiction book of the year, The Zookeeper's Wife by Diane Ackerman. The rest of my top 6 were all either listened to on audio or read as ebook. So I don't have the books to show you, but I'll put them up here. First up, The 57 Bus by Dashka Slater. This was another fascinating book for a completely different reason. This was about an incident in California. I think it was California, West Coast, I believe California, on the 57 bus. Oh yeah, it took place, sorry, right. It took place in Sacramento, on this city bus one day, when a gender fluid young person was riding the bus home from school and was wearing, as was their usual outfit, they loved to dress up as really nicely. So bow tie and vest, nice shirt, and they had a skirt on, a ballerina kind of skirt made of tulle. And another group of teenagers on the bus, there was one kid playing around with a lighter who set the skirt on fire. So a lot was made of this in the media, that this was a horrific hate crime, you know, that the perpetrator should be punished severely. But Slater looks at both sides of the story here, and she really digs down in depth, talks to both the families of both young people, the young people themselves, finds out exactly what happened that day. it turned out it was a little bit of peer pressure, a little bit of curiosity, really not much hate at all. Not to make light of the incident, because, okay, I just paused to look up the name of the main person here, and they weren't gender fluid, they were agender. I don't know a lot about it, but wanted to make sure I got that right. And their name was Sasha. So, certainly I don't want to make light of this, because Sasha was seriously injured. The skirt went up in flames, severe third-degree burns, a lot of time in the hospital. But the author in this book focuses very much on restorative justice rather than incarcerating teens who made one mistake. And it's a very compelling argument. So we get to know Sasha as well as the boy, I think his name was Richard, that had the lighter. We get to know each of them really intimately. And that is the beauty of this book, why it made my top 10. It's a very powerful book. It's full of compassion and common sense. I learned a lot, and it was excellent on audio. That's The 57 Bus by Dashka Slater. Another of my top 6 nonfiction books of the year was Destiny of the Republic by Candace Millard. I've read her books before. She wrote The River of Doubt about Teddy Roosevelt's journey up the Amazon River. My book group had read that one years ago, and so chose this one. This is about the life of President Garfield and the life of his assassin. So I knew nothing about President Garfield before I listened to this book. And there's a reason for that. He was only president for 6 months, which is a real shame because it sounds like he could have been a great president. So this book, as with her others, is just a very in-depth, intimate portrayal, not just of the president, but also of his assassin and the paths that each took that finally led them to intersect each other. His assassin was severely mentally ill. Garfield was a reluctant presidential candidate. He really did not want to be nominated. He went to the National Convention to nominate someone else, and it's a fascinating story, totally different chapter in American history that I had never heard before, and that I really enjoyed learning about. The audio was outstanding, very well done. I really enjoyed it. It was very immersive, so you really felt like you were getting, right in the middle of the story. Next up, my top middle grade novel for the year also made my top 6 nonfiction. This is a graphic memoir, A First Time for Everything by Dan Santat. I'll put the picture up here too because there's a glare on the screen. This is a wonderful memoir about the author's trip to Europe in the summer before he started high school that completely changed his life. Both helped him open up, become less isolated, make some friends, as well as discover his lifelong love of art. So, fabulous book. It is a memoir, but it's also a travel log. What happens is early on in the trip, his camera broke. And so, this is set in the 80s. And so he started drawing, which of course led to a whole career. So, so he gets bullied a bit at school, made fun of, but his teacher and his parents convince him to go on this Europe trip with another school. It's 2 schools combined, which is the way mine was too in high school. And during the trip, of course, he sees some amazing things, but more importantly, he comes out of his shell. He learns to be open to new experiences, It's just a wonderful book, A First Time for Everything by Dan Santat, and it won the National Book Award at the end of the year for young people's literature. Next on my list was another memoir, but an adult memoir that I listened to on audio, How to Forget by Kate Mulgrew. This was such an emotionally powerful book. It is about, well, Kate Mulgrew, if you recognize her name, she's a famous actress. She was Captain Janeway on Star Trek Voyager and Red on Orange is the New Black, as well as being a stage and screen actress. This is her memoir about caring for her mother and father at the ends of their lives, as her father died very quickly from cancer, and as her mother died very slowly from Alzheimer's disease. We've dealt with both kinds of things in our family. My dad died of cancer. My husband's father had severe dementia in his last 6 months and moderate dementia for the previous 8 years. And so I could really relate, which made it all the more emotional for me. It was difficult for me to listen to at times because of my personal experience, but at the same time, there's something very supportive and encouraging hearing someone else's story and knowing that someone else has gone through these same things. The audiobook was outstanding. She reads it herself, so you are right in the middle of her family and this story, experiencing it. And she's an excellent writer. I'd really like to go back and read her memoir of her childhood. I think it's called Born with Teeth. So definitely recommend How to Forget by Kate Mulgrew, especially on audio. Next up, another graphic memoir, Layers by Penelope Bagu. This is more of a young adult memoir, and it was outstanding. It's very unique because she tells, it's coming of age. It's about her life from childhood through young adulthood. But the memoir is formatted as a series of separate stories, little vignettes. And some of them start in childhood and go all the way through to young adulthood. Like this first story about her cat, the kitten she got as a young girl, and his role in her life at each stage. Other sections, other vignettes focus more on her as a young adult. There are some difficult topics here, things like sexual assault and unwanted sexual attention. But overall, it's just, her drawings are fabulous. And using these short stories, these little vignettes from her life, is a very effective way to tell her coming of age story. Very much enjoyed Layers by Penelope Bagu. And that's it. That is my top 6 nonfiction books for 2023. It was a fabulous reading year for me. I want to hear what you read in 2023. Let me know in the comments down below, what were your top nonfiction books that you read last year? I would love to hear about them because I'll need some for this year.